What's up, everyone? Yes, it is I, your host, Natalie Morrison, and you might be thinking, wasn't this called Swim Masters? Well, yes, it was, and you're definitely in the right place. We decided that we wanted to give the podcast a bit of a makeover, and we're so proud to introduce to you ReVoicing the Future, a Women of NAM podcast. Don't worry, it's still the same content, still the same hosts. We just wanted to take this to the next level. And we're excited that you're joining us on this fantastic journey. The episode that you're currently listening to was recorded before the name change. And I just wanted to let you know that you are in the right spot. So keep on listening. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for all new episodes of ReVoicing the Future, a Women of NAM podcast, coming soon.
Welcome to Swim Masters, a podcast dedicated to help connect, grow, and support women in the music products industry. I am your host, Natalie Morrison. The Smart Women in Music Fund was established in 2018 by Robin Walenta, Dee Dee Hyde, and Crystal Morris to expand diversity, inclusion, and support for women in the music products space. Twice a month, I will sit down and host virtual conversations with various women across our industry to help foster mentorship and growth. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back. It's your host, Natalie Morrison, with another episode of Swim Masters. Hope you're doing well, excited, ready for another conversation. I know I am. Today's episode, I will be sitting down with Laura Whitmore. You might know her from around the industry. She runs the Women's International Music Network. She hosts the She Rocks Awards at the NAMM Show and other showcases throughout the year. She has worked for Korg, and she even started her own agency. We're going to dive into that and so much more. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hi, Laura. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. Just trying to stay healthy and sane.
Yes, aren't we all?
Absolutely. So I'm excited for our conversation today because I think you have a really interesting career journey that's worth sharing. Where did you start in the industry and where are you now?
It's funny, I'll start a little bit further back than that. When I was a teenager, I really wanted to go to school for music. I wanted to go to Berkeley, actually, and my parents, who were business people, were like, no, we're not letting you go to Berkeley. So I ended up going to Hofstra University in their music business program, which back then was pretty rare. There weren't a lot of music business programs around, maybe 3 or 4 in the country. And so after I graduated from that program, I got a job at CBS Records in Manhattan, working in their direct marketing department, which was the Columbia House Record Club. And it was funny because at that point, I was more focused on music than I was on business. So I didn't really know how epic it was with the people that I was working with were pioneers in direct marketing. And later, when I went back to school for my MBA in marketing, they were in my textbooks, like literally pioneers in direct marketing. So hindsight, I was like, wow, well, I should have taken more advantage of who I was working with. But I was at CBS Records for a couple of years, and then I got the job as a marketing assistant at Korg USA. I think the year was 1988 or 89 or something like that. I started out working with Mike Covens, who was at that point the vice president of marketing. It was just the two of us in the marketing department. It was right when personal computers were like coming into the world. So, I would do things like type out the press releases and clip slides to them and make the media kits for the damn show. When you look back, you're like, how did anybody get anything done? It was really great for me because it gave me an opportunity to learn so many different aspects of marketing because the department was so small and the company was really pro education. They would send me to workshops and seminars, and I learned all kinds of different programs. I learned how to do desktop publishing. I was the first webmaster for Korg, so I learned HTML so that I could talk with our web designers and fix little things myself and all, so I was there for 20 years. So Over those 20 years, my role changed quite a bit, but I got to have a really deep knowledge of the music products industry and, developed in so many ways. Was the editor of their magazine. I managed the advertising agency relationship, just like a million things over the years. And as I mentioned, during that time, I got my MBA and I was the marketing manager at Korg for a good chunk of time. And then I left in 2008. So I had been there for 20 years and moved out to California. And that's when I started my own agency, Mad Sun Marketing, pretty much doing the things I had been doing at Korg, but for other companies. And I have to admit, like it was tough. It was really tough to get that rolling and work from home, where I had been used to this really strong team relationship. And when I left Korg, I had a big client already. So I wasn't starting from zero at the beginning, but maybe about a year in, I got to the point where I was like, I can't do this. I'm not enjoying this. It's too hard. And then I sort of like coincidentally got a guitar amp client. And it was a small client, but I enjoyed it so much. And I sort of took off from there. I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I just need to find the clients that excite me. And maybe I can figure out this work from home thing. And I made sure that I socialized in other ways, had lunches and went out to see shows and things like that. I kind of learned the hard way all the things about A, running your own business, and B, figuring out how to work from home and not feel so totally isolated. The agency like progressed for many years, working with some really amazing companies and, enabling me to learn a lot of new things and move into the digital age and work with, younger people on my team and just keep really current. And that's been what I had been doing for the last 12 years until 2 months ago, when I actually accepted a job as a vice president of marketing for a company called Positive Grid. And now I am spearheading their international team, and it's been really exciting and energizing for me to work with them. The leadership is so smart, and the people on the team are so great to work with and eager and smart and innovative that it's fantastic for me. And it has enabled me to really move forward in my knowledge of what's happening now in marketing and how to apply that to our industry. It's been exciting. That's me in a nutshell.
Yay! When you decide to start your own agency, what did you do to really put your business out there to try to get clients? Because you came out of Korg and you already had a big client. So did you have any tactics that kind of helped you build that business?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. You think, okay, at that point, I had been in the industry for 20 years. You'd think I would know so many people, but really my role at Korg was not like public facing. So I didn't have a lot of relationships with other companies and individuals in the industry. So, I mean, what I started to do was, I built a website for Mad Sun. I started doing more networking in the industry. I think I got that guitar client because somebody on my Facebook, feed mentioned that they were doing something with them. And I was like, hey, do they need marketing? So I was just a little bit more out there. And then at one point, when I felt like I needed to be more visible, I did a series of articles about the industry for, I think it was Music Inc. magazine. And, over the years, I realized, I've made myself very visible with many of the projects that I do. And it, to me, has all been about having a massive network, really nurturing the network, and then creating information that's visible online that is like expert information. I think there was one point during maybe the last 5 years that I was like, oh, I learned that the business is sort of cyclical, it goes up and down. When I was in a downtime, and I'm like, how can I get myself out here? I don't want to do like an ad. That's not to me like a position that I want to put myself in. So I wrote some blog articles about things like, 10 tips for disruptive marketing, or just like things that I thought were thought leadership pieces. And then we boosted those out into the world of like, NAM members and things like that. And that definitely helped me get more business. So I've kind of learned maybe not the obvious ways, but the ways to put you at top of mind for people who are looking for marketing support. And there have also been like several individuals who have referred like quite a bit of business to me who have been my champions. So that's been really great and helpful. People that are also out in this world a lot who are like, oh, you need marketing? I know who you should talk to. And sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't, but it's always, a great conversation to have. And, sometimes I might refer them to somebody else and pass it along, especially now that I'm not really doing, agency business. I've been referring people to other great folks I know in the industry. So I think the networking is really, really key.
Yeah. I've learned that from the beginning is you got to network, build that network.
Yeah, and you have to like work at it constantly because I feel like it's like I mentioned, it's all about top of mind. Like you never know when these people are going to have their need. So you have to find a way to be in front of them that's like not pushy, but it has like shows your value, you know?
Yeah. And it can be really like networking can be really uncomfortable for some people, but you just got to keep doing it. It gets easier.
Yeah, and I never found it uncomfortable. I always felt like everybody has value. It's really funny. I actually taught a networking workshop to Berklee College of Music students once. And it was so interesting because people do fear networking. But from my perspective, it's all about figuring out what you have to contribute to each other, or it's just like tucking that relationship in your back pocket, like you never know when that need is going to arise. And so from my perspective, you can't go into a networking situation thinking like, "Oh, I want something from this person." It's better to, flip that and think, what can I offer this person? Is there a way that, we can build like this mutually beneficial relationship so that they're totally open to, helping me and I can help them in some way. So, and a lot of times, I'm really about positive business karma. Like if there's something I can do for somebody and it's no skin off my back and I can help them, I always feel like that comes back around in some way. So I just approach networking as, I just love building relationships with people anyway. I don't approach it as, hey, I'm trying to get something from this person. Like, how can I do it? That to me is really the wrong way to approach networking.
It can also sense when you're networking to get something out of them.
For sure.
So you want to be as genuine as possible.
But I would even do things like, obviously not now, but I travel quite extensively, and there would be times when I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to be in this city, and I have like an afternoon open. I wonder if there's anyone I know in my LinkedIn network that I could go have a cup of coffee with."
Yeah.
And I would just reach out to people and say, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. You around?" Like, not to get anything from them, but just to build the relationship because I'm a firm believer in person interaction. So yeah, and I have definitely created much stronger relationships by spending in-person time with people.
Yeah. So stemming off of the fact that you created your own agency, built your own business, did that help you then launch the Women's International Music Network?
I would say yes and no. I mean, it's funny, when I launched the Women's International Music Network, I didn't think of it as a business at all. I literally felt like there was a need in the community and somebody needed to do something. And I just said, hey, I'm just going to do this thing. I didn't really plan it out as like, oh, what's my 5-year plan for this? Or, how are we going to fund it or any of that? So, the opportunity arose. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of that. So I was working for, I guess, Future Publishing was the owner of Guitar World at that time. And I was working for them, writing a blog series and doing some marketing consultant. And my blog series was focusing on female guitarists, which nobody was covering at the time. And as I started talking to all these women in the industry, and not just guitar players, but, business people relating to guitar somehow, I realized like, wow, there's this like huge underrepresentation in the world. We don't know each other, the women in the industry, other players don't see other role models out there. I just felt like, wow, like the visibility and the interaction between women in the industry was really low. So an opportunity came up for me to produce an event up at this really beautiful resort called Full Moon Resort up in the Catskills of New York. And I called it the Women's Music Summit. And I had like all these women come and do workshops, and we did jams every night. And it was really an incredible event that was a huge amount of work. So in hindsight, it was like insane to start this whole thing off with this like 3 day sleeping at the resort event in the middle of nowhere. But I got like a lot of support for it, and it was really tough to produce, but it made me sort of focus on this idea of, wow, we need to do more to connect women. So I think that was in maybe like August or September, probably of 2012, maybe. And then NAM was coming up, and I was like, wow, like I just want to have a breakfast to get the women in the industry together. And, when I thought about that and sort of like formulated that into the She Rocks Awards, I was like, oh, well, we need a website for the home for this, because it shouldn't just be about this one event. There should be like more. And that's sort of what led to it. It was just me going, oh, there should be more. Ta-da.
But look where it is now.
8 years later, there's more for sure. And it's really grown, and we have a lot of people who help us. And, it's been interesting lately because we're like, wow, everybody's home. Like, what do we do to help women? What do we do to help people? We're sort of all in the same boat. But, we have a few things going on, and we have some more coming up. So, we're doing our best to keep the interaction going.
What was the transition point from, because you mentioned that you created a breakfast at one of the NAM shows. How did that then transition into the award show that it is today?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So for 2 years we did a breakfast, and the first year we did it, I wasn't even expecting to have any performances there because I had no money. I literally was like, oh, I want to do this. I don't want to charge anyone to come, and I am asking people to show up for nothing. And what can we do? And so I had gotten Orianthi to say that she would be there to accept an award, and then she volunteered to perform. She's like, how about if we perform?
Wow.
So after the first year, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Here's this idea of doing this intersection of awards and performances, and an energizing event. So we did the second breakfast. We had some more performances, and incidentally, the Command Sisters performed. I think they sort of opened up the show that year. That second year, we did the breakfast, and then the third year, Nam came to me and said, like, hey, we have this room, this ballroom that we have set up for the Tech Awards. Like, do you want to use that setup for the She Rocks Awards on Friday night instead of doing your breakfast on Friday morning? We'll let you use the space for free. You'll have to pay for like all of the personnel to run everything, but I didn't have to pay for like the stage and the lighting and the screens and all of that. I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, here I am doing this breakfast event that maybe costs like $10,000 to do. Like, we were so frugal about it. And now we're moving into this idea of doing this event that's going to cost us like, $50 or $60,000 to produce. And, I really thought about it, and I was like, well, if I don't take advantage of this opportunity, I might never have it again. Like, I think I have to go for it. And actually, there's this guy on our board. His name's Rob Christie. He's a producer. He actually runs Republic Records Studios right now. And I got connected to him at some point through an event that I did. And he was so helpful to me that year when I jumped to the evening event, because he knew so many people. He helped me get the bangles. He helped me bounce ideas around, and he understood more about, sound and production. And I also, we had to really push getting more sponsors, and we sort of learned as we went. But it was a huge leap of faith to think like, okay, like, can we jump from this like low pressure breakfast event to this huge production? We had some stumbling blocks, but it really enabled us to blossom into the event that we are right now, and to be like this important fixture, during the trade show. And it was really NAM seeing that this event could be, so meaningful to people and giving us that opportunity that led us to jump that quickly and grow that quickly.
Was the Bangles the same year that you honored Colby Calais? I think it is
Yeah.
because I was there. I I helped volunteer, and I think this was the same year. I helped you volunteer, and I tried to live tweet and post on social for the event, and the Wi-Fi in the room didn't work, so we couldn't live tweet.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like we had a lot of growing pains. Like we learned a lot. It was tough because when you do an event in a hotel, they want to charge you like $10,000 to have Wi-Fi in the room. It's like insane,
Wow.
So we were thinking we don't have the budget for that. That's not something that we can spend our money on.
And now you're at the House of Blues.
Yeah, now we're at the House of Blues. So, how many years have we been at the House of Blues? Maybe 3. And it's been really great because having a space that's set up for sound and performance has really enabled us to migrate the event to like a whole nother level of, professionalism and production. And like this past year, I personally felt was the best produced event we've ever done. We added a lot of video content. The performances were amazing. We were able to just have the flow of the event feel more tight, I guess is the way to put it. But we're learning. We've been learning all these years too. Like I've hired event production professionals and sound professionals, and you get to the point where you're like, okay, I've got like all these pros working on the event. Like we should be a pro event, and I really felt like we were this year, like the best professional production we've done. So, but also the most expensive She Rocks Awards we've ever produced.
That does come with the territory,
Yes,
unfortunately.
it does. And I've sort of learned, I was going to say this earlier, like you don't really know what you're capable of until you're challenged to go there. So that year when we jumped to Friday night, I was like, can we do this? Like you can't even imagine how much anxiety and like stress I had because I didn't actually know if we or I had the capability to A, like get the money to fund this, and B, actually produce an event that big. So I kind of feel like, you step into the role when you're like forced to do that, and you have to take that leap of faith or you're never going to grow. But it's
Right.
still it's still all around terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
And every year I'm like, nobody's going to come, nobody's going to buy tickets. Everybody buys their tickets at the last minute. Makes me crazy. We'll be like a week before and there'll be half the house is still not sold, and then all of a sudden it's sold out. It's just so bizarre.
Yeah, that's with every event that I've learned.
I know. When I was at Corgi, when I used to produce events, huge events, like, we did like, I don't remember what year, maybe it was the 30th or 35th or 40th, I don't know, anniversary of Marshall Amps. And it was a huge event at the Grove. And, we had Eric Johnson play and, just like like tons of people. And, you're always like freaked out. And I always say that producing events is 95% what did I get myself into, and 5% that was awesome,
Yeah. Yep.
But everybody's like, while it's happening, they're like, oh, you must be like so excited. This is so great. And I'm like, I'm working, I'm like thinking about the next thing that's going to happen and praying nothing goes wrong. But I will say this year at the She Rocks Awards, I actually enjoyed myself because I thought it was so great. So,
Yay.
yeah, we got to that point. That was the first year ever when I wasn't like literally freaking out every minute.
So, stemming off from the She Rocks Awards, you launched the initiative for Girl the Album. Can you go into the vision behind that?
Yeah, Girl the Album. It's funny because even right now I'm like, it's still not done. Is it ever going to be done? And it's so close to being done that I'm like, okay, we have to just push through and finish this. But the whole idea, it's another one of those random things that wasn't like fully thought through from beginning to end, but felt like the right thing. And maybe I'm good at my gut, trusting my gut. I don't know. I was at a songwriting retreat in Martha's Vineyard with my co-writer, Jenna Bayonne. And we had a little bit of grumblings about what was happening at the retreat we didn't agree with. So we went to a bar to get a drink and have lunch, and we're sitting outside, beautiful, view of the marina and all that, and we're having margaritas, and we're just talking about stuff. And I think I had just interviewed Amy Lee I was doing some live interviewing for AOL Build, and she had just released a children's album, and I thought it was really great and cool that she was doing this, pivoting and doing this children's album. And we were just talking about how great it would be to work in that space. And we sort of simultaneously came up with this idea, like, well, what if we did an album of like original music that was, you know, empowering for girls? And the idea really blossomed super fast. We actually, like, after that, we went to a coffee shop and like wrote the first song for the album, like right then and there, like that minute. And that song actually made it onto the album, because like some of the earlier songs didn't make it because they were maybe focused a little too young. The idea for the album has migrated into more of a pop album that is really accessible to everybody, but it's focused on, like, tween to teenage girls. But like a lot of the actual content of the song is just inspiring music. And so over the last few years, we've worked on writing and rewriting. We've had meetings with Disney. We've done so many things to develop the project, and it's felt like it's taken a long time, but it's actually probably really good that it's taken some time, because where it has evolved to is so much more elevated than what our original creative idea was. So I'm so, so proud of where it's at right now. And we're just finishing up like the last 3 songs on the album. And we have a lot of guest musicians who have taken part in it and played or performed on it. So it's not about us as artists, it's about just this concept of having music out in the world to inspire girls and to be like just so focused on, giving them uplifting messaging about themselves and their place in the world. So it's in its final stages, and we're hoping this year it gets done. And I have to tell you this, like, we were literally, so March, I don't remember the date, but it was like the weekend that I ended up leaving New York was the weekend we were supposed to go into the studio to finish some final vocal recording for this album. And then it didn't happen because everything sort of fell apart in the world and everybody stayed home. So, it's going to be so amazing. We've shared some of the music. We've performed some of the songs at the She Rocks Awards over the last couple of years. And it's been a wonderful project to work on, and it has actually made me grow so much as a songwriter and made me realize like my strengths when working with the right songwriting partner. And Jen is really great to work with because she's super focused on pop and like what makes a good pop song. And I'm more of like a folky writer who doesn't care about that, but we kind of balance each other out in a cool way, you know? So, some of the songs Jenna came up with the initial idea and then we worked on it together, and some of them was the opposite. But it's always been really like respectful and great to work with her. And we've actually written some stuff that are not girl songs, but we're sort of trying to focus on finishing this before we get on to the next thing. But yeah, it's been cool.
That's exciting. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've heard a couple of the songs from the awards and stuff. But I remember when you launched I think it was a Kickstarter or something. Yeah.
We're getting there. So anybody who invested in us, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. You're going to get your final music really soon. So many things happen in between. Like our producer, who has been great, got signed to like a major label, and he has been working on like huge projects, like Demi Lovato and stuff. So we're trying to get him to squeeze in some time for us to like finish this thing. And he's like, "Oh, talk to my assistant." And I'm like, "Wow, I knew you when you were like working out of your, basement doing demos." But he's been amazing. So yeah, but that has held us up a little bit as well. But that's okay. Like we all have our thing, and I'm happy for him that he's doing really great stuff.
So one last question. Do you have any lasting advice that has carried you through all your career transitions?
Yes. Well, it's interesting. So I'll tell you a little anecdote. When I was at Korg, there was one point in my career, I think I was kind of really focused on executing and getting stuff done. I had like so much work to do and very deadline focused. And I was kind of like bitchy, maybe not the most pleasant person to work with. I know it's hard to believe. And somebody said something to me like, "What's up with you? Like, why are you being so bitchy?" And I was like, wow, like, am I? Like, oh, let me think about that. And at that very moment, this book came out and I heard about it maybe on NPR or something. It was on the New York bestseller list called The Power of Nice. And so I grabbed that book and I read it. And it was all about how, like, being nice in business can lead to success and that you don't have to be like a cutthroat business person or totally focused on your bottom line or, just such a go getter. And you can redefine like what success means for yourself. And part of the book had things where you practice being nice to people. Like, hey, every day compliment somebody on something. When you go to, the mini mart to buy something, like say something nice to the cashier, like whatever. So I started practicing that, and it actually helped me. It helped in my networking because networking, like, is a part of it is about breaking the ice, right? And then finding like something in common with somebody. And it had just helped me refocus, like, who do I really want to be and how do I want to interact with people in the world? And it it helped me develop this idea that I mentioned earlier about, positive business karma or positive karma in general, and just putting out good things into the world and helping people and not expecting anything in return and doing things that feel like the right thing to do, and they may not be the right thing for the bottom line, but they're the right thing. And it has just really helped me in all aspects of my life to, be more of that person who is more thoughtful of how my interactions affect other people and how I can be more helpful to people in my business, in the world. And a lot of times I'll do workshops with college students and stuff, and I talk about that because I think nobody really talks about how are you going to approach the world? How is the world going to see you? Like, what is your space going to be like? Is it going to be a space of kindness or a space of like, what can I get from you? And I've kept that with me ever since. And, there's some things and some people that I'm like, okay, this person, I want to help them. Like, what can I do for them? And then there's sometimes like do get turned off a lot when somebody comes at me really hard asking for something. But, I think that to me, it's sort of like this nebulous idea of, putting out positivity into the world and how you can approach like what you do in business from that place of kindness and positiveness and contribution. And I just think like whether you are trying to use that to get ahead in business or not, like you benefit from it in so many ways that it's just mentally more helpful. I think, it's easier to network with people when you're not asking them for, all those things we talked about. So that's sort of one of my tenets of, my business style is coming from that point of, positivity, kindness, and, even-headed thought, I guess.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that book out.
Yeah, check that book out, The Power of Nice. It's cool because the covers looks like a smiley face. It's like yellow with a smile
Aw.
on it. And really, it's a very short book. It's not too deep, but I tell people about it all the time because it affected me so much. And I think it's more relevant than ever to the world. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you. It's always fun to talk about yourself. You always hope somebody cares what you have to say.
I care.
Thank you.
You've been such a mentor to me, so I thought that your story would be helpful for a lot of other people.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's a different perspective on the industry and what you can do within the industry, you know?
Yeah, and I think, it's funny when I started in the industry, in the musical instrument industry, I never thought about this industry at all. When I went to school for music business, I was like, record labels, let's be cool. And the musical instrument space wasn't even on my radar one little bit. I mean, I sort of fell into it because of that job at Korg. My advisor from college referred me to the job. I never would have thought about it. And I think that there is, it's what you make out of it, but I think there's so much opportunity in our space, but also, in business, I kind of feel like there's a lot of doors you can take. There's a lot of paths you can take. And part of it is that idea of redefining what excites you, what's success mean to you. Like I wanted to be a rock star, Now I'm like, I could do my music, but it's more fun to me to come up with like a really great marketing campaign than to perform on stage, And I'm like, okay, as long as I'm creatively engaged, then you got to be open to opportunity and different paths. I feel like my career path has been a little windy and twisted, but in a good way. I'm never bored, ever.
Right. Your career is never a straight line.
And I think like, it's the whole thing about the music industry. There's no path to success. It's not like becoming a doctor, right? Where you're like, okay, you go to medical school and then you intern or whatever, and you have this whole path to like, what you need to do to be successful. Like we don't have that path. We have to constantly be figuring out what that path is. And I think just training yourself, being open to opportunity, constantly learning, constantly networking, and also like just following through with what you say you're going to do is like the key, my keys to success.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much again. If anyone wants to learn more about the Women's International Music Network, they can go to
TheWIMN.com, TheWIMN.com. The Women.
Woohoo! Thanks for listening to this episode of Swim Masters. Don't forget to follow us on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, to stay up to date on all new things swim. We'd love it if you'd share and leave us a review. If you would like to learn more, please visit www.smartwomeninmusic.org. This episode was co-produced and edited by Stephanie Lamond and Natalie Morrison. See you next time.